Well, hi everyone. I'm John Rickland with a retro review of WWE Backlash 2005. Thank you all for voting. This is for you guys because some listeners participated in the poll I put on Twitter, and this is what you wanted to see me talk about. So I want to say thanks because you reminded me of how good this pay per view was in parts, and holy shit, there were some parts where my god, I can't believe they got away with that, or I can't believe they put that on pay per view even in 2005. Shit, wrestling has changed a whole lot. Society has changed a whole lot in 15 years. One thing about this, I miss unique pay-per-view sets. And this is kind of when, yes, they had the set pieces and the B-level pay-per-views had their own unique look. But this is where things were kind of starting to get a little samey. This kind of reminded me a little bit of the 2002 Backlash set. But I actually enjoyed this one. Outside of like one match and one particular segment, this was a pretty goddamn good pay-per-view. And it was under 3 hours with 6 matches, and 5 of them were at least good to great. One was not particularly good. Let's find out which one I did not care for. So we have Chris Jericho and Shelton Benjamin for the Intercontinental Championship to kick us off, and this was pretty goddamn good. Shelton Benjamin had beaten Chris Jericho at Taboo Tuesday 2004 and was in the midst of I think it would end up being a 6 or 7 month run as Intercontinental Champion, and he was on a roll here. Now, they were in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire was quite a fired up crowd. In fact, I think they should bring a pay per view back to New Hampshire when all this stuff calms down. This was a pretty good opening match with some good wrestling and everything, but Jericho would start to be more the heel, even though he was getting cheered because he was Chris Jericho and fans were going to cheer him. It was nothing against Shelton, who was really on a roll at this point. He was in the midst of probably his best run, I would say. Like, he, unfortunately, at least his best run in WWE, because by 06, it was saddled with the Mama character, and then he would just slide further down the card, unfortunately, despite how great he was. But there was some well-paced action, good wrestling, while Jericho got more heelish. Shelton did that leap where he leaped into the superplex, incredible move, a lot of near falls, a couple of walls of Jericho variations, and a few near fall tradings, and jackknife cover, 1, 2, 3, and there we go. Shelton Benjamin gets the victory. And Jericho wasn't too happy because he said his shoulders were up and Shelton's were down. Nope, the referee rules. The referee's call is final. Final in every case possible. They never change the referee's decision. But anyway, enough about that. This was actually pretty good stuff. And then we have Edge talking about his last man standing match with Chris Benoit, where he promises that Benoit will not be left standing at the end of the night. Oh dear. So, tag team title match gauntlet. Now, this is a Raw exclusive pay-per-view back when the original brand split was happening. This is unfortunately when Raw was a little more packed. And while SmackDown had some pretty damn good talent, they were starting to have some shit pay-per-views. I mean, come on. They were having some shit individual pay-per-views. Which is unfortunate because they had some pretty good performers on there. But it really was treated like the B show by that point. Despite SmackDown being better than Raw during the initial, like I'd say, year plus of the brand split. So, who were the teams? Well, it was the Heartthrobs. Remember the Heartthrobs? Remember that? Antonio and Romeo, I believe, were their names. They had the Dicks on SmackDown. They had the Heartthrobs on Raw. They should have made a stable out of them. Called them the Dick Throbs. Aren't you glad you tune in for such mature content like this? I'm such a mature individual. Everybody is shaking their head saying, and I know if Derb's watching this, he is saying that nobody has ever said that. And I do want to say really, really quickly that when all this stuff calms down, myself and Durbinator will be doing, dual content. But in, as of for now, you guys will be getting content from me. If that was English, well, then you understood it better than I did. But anyway, let's continue with this. The Heartthrobs versus William Regal and Jiri, and they were the tag team champions at the time. Regal and Jiri, not the Heartthrobs, nothing against them, but that gimmick was shit. And there was some good action. This was a pretty quick gauntlet match, though. We get a sunset flip from Tajiri, and he pins one of the Heartthrobs. Or as I wrote down, one of the Throbs. He gets a throbbing sunset flip on him, a flipping throb on him. I'm going to make this as uncomfortable as possible, which I really if I ever do merch, I really should put that on a t-shirt. Because that should be the tagline for this channel. I will make things as uncomfortable as possible. So, we get Maven and Simon Dean. Hands up if you forgot that Maven was still part of WWE in 2005. I gotta admit, I was. Now, I think he was gone later this year or by early 06. But Simon Dean, boy, that was a weird thing. I always forget that Simon Dean I always forget that they had the Simon Dean character going for a little bit, and he even feuded with Lashley. Oh boy, that was fun. Yeah, they weren't really all that good of a team. Maven by this point had checked out. I mean, his tights were smaller than his goddamn eyebrows, so they got beat pretty damn quickly. Regal knees Simon, maybe knocked some sense into the idiot, but there we go. And we then get Sylvain Grenier and Rob Conway, La Resistance, and they fight. They fight Regal right there, who's checking on Jiri. And there's some good action, but nope. The tights get pulled, Regal gets pinned. We're guaranteed new tag team champions. Final team is Hurricane and the late Rosie, who was a superhero in training. It's shit. Do you get it? Do you get it? Vince McMahon's maturity is shining through here. And after some good action, we get new tag champions, Hurricane and Rosie. It was a nice splash finish, which the crowd was really happy for. And it was good stuff. We then get Chris Benoit versus Edge, last man standing match. This match was uncomfortable. Especially if you've seen the Dark Side of the Ring stuff, the two-part, edition that they did on Benoit, and all the fallout from that, and what led up to the death, and then what how the deaths happened, and all that. And oh boy, this was uncomfortable. But it was uncomfortable even if you hadn't seen that, just knowing how Benoit's life ended. However, whatever led to it, whatever huge amount of stuff led to it, it's just uncomfortable knowing it. But there were some hard hits. This was Benoit wanting to get revenge because Edge had knocked him off the ladder to win the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania just, a few weeks prior. And it was good stuff. It was really good stuff, though. Benoit did mention at one point, he says Benoit has been called many things in his career. New Japan, he was called Pegasus Kid, all this stuff. And in some circles, he's called the Crippler. Benoit would later prove this label to be very accurate. And then you screwed Brett Chance to Earl because people would not forget that. And we want Matt Chance to Edge because, during the whole thing where fans had completely turned on Lita and Edge. And, I mean, Edge was already kind of a heel, but boy, they turned on Lita really, really quickly. Who didn't turn on Lita during this time? Oh, that's mean. Actually, in all seriousness, it's their business. But boy, it was really put out there in the open. Into the crowd and Benoit going over the edge. I mean, JR, you were just a couple years off with that. Just a couple years off. I put up a few clips on my Twitter. Of course, by the time you see this, they may have already been buried there. But if you check out the media and check out videos, I took a few clips. One was Benoit going for a suicide dive through the ropes and Edge hitting him in the head with a trash can lid. And then later, a ladder's brought in, and Benoit does a German suplex Edge off the ladder, and then does a diving headbutt off the ladder that he misses. I can't imagine why Benoit had any brain damage. I can't imagine. I know he's not the only one. Fucking hell, with the benefit of hindsight, this was uncomfortable. It was hard-hitting stuff. There was a crossface spot, and Edge got a brick out of his Money in the Bank briefcase and hit Benoit in the back of the head. And not 1, 2, 3, but it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Okay, last man standing match. You can't answer by the count of 10. You're done. And that was it. And Edge wins. Then Lawler hosts a segment with some divas. It was about the Divas magazine spread. Viva Las Divas, I think is what it was. Christy Hemme, Candice Michelle, Maria, who before she became Maria Kanellis, Victoria, who had already been reduced to being a diva by this point. And I want to do a little sidebar. I'm not knocking the term diva. I'm not even knocking if women wanted to become divas on TV. Some wanted to work really hard and wanted to actually get in the ring and do some stuff. And the kibosh was put on that because they were just put out there by Vince and Laurinaitis. Laurinaitis, known piece of shit that he is. And also some other people, I'm sure by Bruce Pritchard, who I believe is still with the company at this point. They were put out there just to look pretty and not do anything else. There were some that were just there for the money and whatever. You can say that about a lot of guys too. So I don't mean to knock the term diva, but it's just Victoria especially was so much better by this point. Candice would get better by 2007, would even win the Women's Championship and a pretty good feud with Beth Phoenix. And actually have a pretty good feud with Beth Phoenix. But it's just disappointing that some of these women wanted to try and they weren't able to do much of anything besides sit there and bat their pretty eyes and everything and show their puppies. So anyway, that's enough of that. Lillian was also put in there, and Stacy Keibler was there. And this whole segment was just Lawler fawning over the women, and then Chris Masters comes out to save the segment, or so I thought. I forgot about this segment. I remembered it as I watched it, but boy, I thought that some things hadn't aged well. This really didn't age well. A woman shows up, a woman that's in pretty good muscular shape. She was an Ohio Valley Wrestling signee at the time named Melissa Coates, who has wrestled in various independent promotions since. And, strong woman, very powerful, definitely in better shape than I'd say quite a few of the guys that were on the goddamn roster at the time. And because she's a bit of a bodybuilder, or the daughter of a bodybuilder, and probably got into bodybuilding herself. I don't know her background, but I imagine just based on physique alone, she probably put the work in. Chris Masters, this is not knocking against Chris Masters. I want to say that right now. I think Chris Masters was dealt a bad hand. He got dealt a bad hand. He was also busted for a wellness violation and then had to lose muscle mass because he had been one of the many doing steroids, HGH, even though he was naturally in really good shape. But he says, because a woman answered the Master Lock Challenge. For those of you who don't know Master Lock Challenge, you got to break the full Nelson. You got to break his grip. And then there you go. So what did, he's talking to this muscle-bound woman that shows up and he says, and I wrote this down, are you a he or a she? Because from where I'm standing, you could be both. Oh, that didn't, no, even in 05, that wasn't cool. Even in 05, that wasn't cool. Now, I'm sure that she had probably gotten some shit for that, just judging physically by looking at her. I can imagine she was probably made fun of quite a bit, and that's not okay. That's not okay at all. And just looking at it, it wasn't cool to be transphobic or homophobic back then. And, making jokes with your friends or whatever, it's da-da-da-da-da, but come on, guys. That wasn't cool. Who the fuck was the writer that did that? I'll tell you who the writer probably was, or probably wasn't. It probably wasn't anybody with a goddamn brain, and Vince McMahon's probably like, she looks like a guy, pal. Let's have Master say that. Such good shit. Imagine he probably would have said that. But whoever the writer was that came up with that, if they came up with it as a way to maliciously attack her, let's just blame Kevin Dunn. I'll just blame Kevin Dunn for it, because Kevin Dunn's easy to blame for anything, because he literally is what happens when you put a human angry beaver in a producer's role. He is that goddamn hideous. He is that goddamn much of a monstrosity as far as a human being, and far as how he is inside. So let's just blame Kevin Dunn. This was fucking terrible though, because from where I'm standing, you could be both. Nothing against Masters. Woo, he ragdolls her easily. And I'm sure she went pretty limp quickly, but supposed to do that, he ragdolls her and keeps the $3,000 that he had. He pulled his big wad out of his tights. On pay-per-view, at least, so people got to see Chris Masters pull his wad out in front of everybody. Still, this segment did not end well, or age well at all. Also, we had vignettes, or backstage segments with Kane and Lita, because they were an on-screen couple, because Kane was in the Matt role, because Matt was off TV, because he had knee surgery, and then also the whole thing where he got fired for a few months until he got rehired. And then Lita and him make out. That was uncomfortable. Viscera's with Trish, and Viscera says, "Okay, as soon as I lay out Kane, I can get with you," because he was in the beginning of becoming the world's largest love machine. Easy for me to say. I really don't know why Viscera was ever brought back. And that's nothing against the guy, but I don't know why he was brought back when he wasn't nearly the performer he was even in 2000, but is what it is. And nothing against Man. I know he died he died a few years ago. Nothing against the guy, but just, he didn't lend anything really to this. The crowd was also chanting, "Lita sucks, we want Matt." This match was not very good, and ends with a choke slam from Kane to Viscera. And at one point, actually, Trish is going with a chair, and Lita takes her crutch because her knee was legit hurt, and hits the crutch into the chair, into Trish's face. Ouch. And then Trish berates Viscera, and then Viscera lays her out with a bear hug, ragdolling her. It's the second straight segment we've had women ragdolled, and then he splashes her because the crowd chants, roars for him, and he splashes her. Safely, because you could tell he totally landed on his knees. Also, this was around the time that Trish got written off TV for a bit because she had an injury. She was also champion at the time and never lost her championship, and she was out for 4 months. Bizarre. We then get Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan versus Muhammad Hassan and Shawn Daivari. Almost said Arya Daivari, but Arya Daivari is currently with the company, and unfortunately Shawn no longer is. I want to say quickly they had something with the Muhammad Hassan character, and if they had just gone with him being an Arab American who was sick of the demonizing of a culture just because of a few, they could have gone somewhere with that. But nope, they decided to go full on insane and go with him having mask guys choke out the Undertaker with piano wire and then carry the Undertaker away. And it aired the same day in London as the London tunnel bombings. Whew. I'm not saying that's Hassan's fault. That's creative's fault. But this was a huge reaction for Hogan. It was the Dream Team. The Dream Team is Okada and Tanahashi. It is not Hogan and Michaels. Almost said Hogan and Savage because Savage was the man of that team. That's why I'm wearing the Randy Savage t-shirt, because Randy Savage was also always better than Hulk Hogan. And Hogan fighting for the rights of every man. He's fighting for your rights. Fight for the whites. So Shawn Michaels did most of the work. Hogan came in, cleaned house. And he did get another man's lengthy pipe across his back, because if you know the Hogan blooper, it actually would, he actually said to Vince, because he got stumbled in a promo, and it was an unaired promo, that he was the right gay guy for the job. And I don't know why Hogan said that. I mean, I don't know why, and I'm not here to judge, but it was just a very odd thing that he would suddenly say. Hence the pipe comment. Sweet chin music to Daivari. And then Hogan get the pins, cleans up. Of course, Hogan has to take all the glory, and then they celebrate, and some fan joins with Hogan tattoo on his back. I'm going to finish up with, well, first Christian and Tomko saying it's going to be the last pay-per-view for Raw that he's on, because there's a draft. This is when the draft actually meant something. And then we get Batista versus Triple H with Ric Flair at ringside. Triple H Batista 2, Electric Boogaloo, and the entrances, especially for Triple H, took about 4 years. And then it was okay. This was the weakest of their matches, because this was very much an overbooked mess. It was a lot, it was slow-paced stuff, which I don't expect these guys to do, running head scissors and flying head scissors and tornado DDTs and stuff. But compared to what this should have been, Triple H did work on the back of Batista, so that was a way for him to sell. Flair helped. There was a belt shot for 2. Triple H basically tried every underhanded tactic. It didn't work. A ref bump, pedigree, but the ref's down. New ref. Low blow from Triple H because he was tired of that ref's antics. No DQ though. Flair gets knocked down. We get a low blow, but oh no, Batista gets the powerbomb out of the corner. Batista bomb 1, 2, 3. And then Triple H pedigrees the referee afterwards. So yeah, the messiest of their trilogy in 2005. It wasn't bad. It was overall like okay to decent. But this pay-per-view had a lot of really good shit. It just had some stuff that was really bad, like I just mentioned. So anyway, yeah, all that transphobic and Hulk Hogan burying 2 brown people once again, like he always did. Despite any of that stuff and the Viscera, Kane, Lita, Trish thing that was just very uncomfortable, and the Benoit stuff. The more I think about it, it sounds like I'm down on this pay-per-view, but actually this pay-per-view had a lot of energy to it, and it was under 3 hours, and it told some really good stories. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.